Hello, my name is Sarah Al-Mawali, and today I'm going to talk to you about the research that I did. So, the topic that I chose to do my research on is gender identity development, and basically how gender identity develops for children and how it develops for the LGBTQ children as well. So, I'll first off start by defining what is gender identity. And from the article by Eliza Jaworski and Marina Delario and Amy Sandegroski, called Childhood Gender Identity Developmental, Cultural, and Diagnostic Concerns, defines gender identity as one's subjective sense of congruence with an attributed gender. How I would define gender identity is the person's sense of own gender, and it can correlate with an assigned sex at birth or can differ from it. And many of the articles that I read mostly mentioned that parents are usually the first role models for children. So, for example, associating blue for boys, pink with girls is a common thing to say. Associating firefighters with men and teachers for women is also a common thing to say. And all these things that were like associating this, like this for women and this for men, may have caused the child to have an idea of gender roles. And for many kids at a very young age, most parents have molded a way of thinking how a child should think. And gender roles have been passed down from generation to generation. And as a child gets the idea of associating certain objects or activities with gender from their parents, the cycle continues. And the information that surrounds the child usually comes from the parent-child interactions, role modeling, reinforcement from friends and schools, and many of the ideas and beliefs are reinforced by those surroundings. So kids usually get their sense of who they are and how they should be from their surrounding. And that's what most of the articles were talking about. And another article that I read by Anna Serving, called "Sex Differences in 1-3-5-year-olds," and this was a test where they took children from the age 1, 3, and 5, and they did a cross-sectional study investigating toy choices in 38 1-year-olds, 33 3-year-olds, and 35 5-year-old children, who could choose between 10 different toys, 4 feminine, 4 masculine, and 2 neutral, in a structured play session. And after, they investigate what toy the children will choose, they also allow the parents to go into the playroom with their child and see how the child interacts with their parents and what toy they would choose while their parents are around. And the sex differences were found at all 3 ages, and the results showed that feminine toys became less interesting for both girls and boys with increasing age, which I found very interesting because I thought it would be the opposite. But they also said, because I thought as the girl gets older, I thought they would be more interested in more feminine toys than masculine toys, based on what I was reading. But the end result, they said that girls were also more interested in more of the masculine toys. And towards the end of the experiment, the children get to take a toy back home as a gift, and the toy option were a ball, a doll, and a toy car. And a lot of the children went for the more of a neutral toy. So most of them went for the ball, which was also very interesting. But there were also children who, also girls that took a car, and there were boys that took a doll, which was also very interesting. Just by reading that article, I really realized that it's kind of true that children do get their idea of their gender identity from home, from their parents, just because of our cultural beliefs that dictate that there are only 2 biological sexes corresponding to genders. Like example, men are supposed to be masculine and supposed to be attracted to women, And same with women, they they have a gender identification roles of women and to be attracted to men. And obviously they would get that gender stereotype, get that idea of how they're expected to be. But what if the children, what if some children insist that their gender is not the one assigned at birth? Then what do you do? Because there are so many children out there that have to be a certain way just because of society and because of what their parents are expecting them to be. And article that I read, it talked about a diagnosis called the GIDC. GIDC stands for Gender Identity Disorder in Children, and it's a formal diagnosis used by psychologists and physicians to describe children who experience significant discontent with their biological sex assigned a gender or both. And here she says that GIDC is a controversial diagnosis seen by many as a contributing to gender stereotypes and conflating complex matters of gender identity, emotional suffering, and social nonconformity. And it also mentioned that children who are uncomfortable with his or her biological sex will likely behave in a way that violates controversial gender norms. But a child engaged in cross-gender behaviors does not automatically wish to be of the other biological sex, which is true. And as adults, we know that gender and sexuality are far from one size fits all. Some girls prefer to play with the role of boys and vice versa. Some children may feel more comfortable playing with the children of the opposite sex or may frequently cross-dress. Others may be exploring their sexual orientation or seeking to understand the sexual or gender identity of their parents or sibling. While exploring the gender identity and sexual orientation are a normal part of a kid's development. That's all I have. Thank you.